Hope you're having a good Monday. BobbyFi flying solo today. Sheets will be here for live at 6, or it's supposed to be, but we'll finish up everything then. We'll talk a little NBA as well. We've just got a 7-gamer on the MLB slate tonight, and then we've got the potential last game of the finals. So hang in there with us at 6 if you want to, and we'll go through questions, thoughts, and what we're doing on this MLB slate as well as the NBA slate. With that said, let's jump right into it. We're going to go game by game here and break it down real quick. It's a smaller slate, so there's ways we're certainly going to look to be different. I do have Paxton as one of the priority pitchers, but it's going to be hard to decide altogether about exactly who we want to play. It's pretty good hitting conditions today in Boston. There's potential of some rain, but I'm not too worried about it. But you do have 73-degree weather, and it's 11 miles an hour blowing out to the left, which is already the green monster. So a fly ball basically is a double, at least. So I definitely get the argument for the Red Sox here. I think they make a lot of sense. I think they're going to have some decent ownership, and it's going to be hard to get off of too much of the chalk. I do think that playing the bottom of the order, like Kike, assuming that he does bat ninth, Cassis and Turner, because of the same position, are going to both be a little bit lower owned. Then you've got Adam Duvall for some reason at this crazy price, which is just going to keep people off of him. So try and include one of those guys if you're going to make a 5-man, but certainly I do have Boston in a good spot against Seabold and a weak Colorado bullpen in Boston. I know it's not in Colorado, but kind of the next best thing, pretty close to the next best thing. So Paxton, I do have as one of my top 5, and I have Boston as one of the top stacks. Just going to have to deal with some ownership if we do play them. All right, San Francisco and St. Louis. I thought it was going to be Flaherty initially today, and it looks like it's going to be Liberatore. So we'll adjust accordingly. I do think that Liberatore is totally viable. I like the price tag. I think there's upside for him against this Giants team. They do have some guys who are good against lefties, and we know they platoon a lot. You see that they've only got a 4.19 total, though, for a guy against a guy who's 6.4 with some strikeout upside. Liberatore has not been like I don't know. It's not like we've seen like an incredible side of him, but I do think that he is a talented pitcher, and I think that he's on the way up. So I want to try to take advantage of it. We'll get the good games out of him. He had the one really good game against Milwaukee his first time out, has kind of struggled ever since then, but did have to face the Dodgers and Texas in there, along with the Cleveland team. It doesn't strike out much, so I wouldn't hold the numbers against him too much, and I would just sort of bet the long term with a guy like Liberatore. The Logan Webb one I'm really struggling with. I think he's the best pitcher on this slate. And I don't know what's up with me, but I always have a little too much respect for the Cardinals. I like that you're going to get mostly righties if you're facing Webb. You have a nice, reasonable total. So he is definitely an interesting play. It's a lot to pay for him, and it's just the matchup. But I sometimes wonder if I'm just seeing it as perceived matchup versus actual matchup. So I have Logan Webb as a potential, but right now I actually think I'll probably end up with more Liberatore than I do Webb, just because the pricing allows me to get the bats I want in. And I'm very open to reconsidering my Webb thoughts. I definitely am open to the idea of a Webb Paxton build. I just don't know if it's the most optimal way to go about things today. Dunning and Tyler Anderson. Dane Dunning has been a good pitcher in real life this year. Doesn't really offer much of a ceiling in sort of a mediocre-ish matchup against the Angels. After the top 4, it does sort of drop off with their lineup, but I still think it's enough just to keep me probably off the pitching in this game. And I definitely think you can make an argument for the Texas stack. I think that you're going to have some decent ownership, but probably not as much as you used to see. I'm guessing it's because of pricing, and Tyler Anderson is sort of just capable enough. But a low-owned Texas staff, I can certainly talk myself into on this slate. And you could definitely make a similar argument for the Angels. It's just interesting the Angels at a full run less are getting, and also very expensive, are getting significantly more ownership. That's partly because of the Ohtani-Trout combination. You do have Tice as a really good catching option. So both sides of this game, I think, you could definitely make an argument for the hitting. I am more on the Texas side than the LA side. And I'm not going to cross off just because of the weirdness of the slate either of these pitchers, even though I'm probably not going to end up with them as by the time the builds are done. But early on, I'm definitely not crossing these guys off. Please, while we move on to the next game, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and jump on into our to our Discord if you haven't already. Our premium Discord is really fun. It's been a little bit quieter lately because it's mostly been baseball and we've had some guys out, but it'll fire back up. And we've got the U.S. Open coming up this week, which I'll be attending. So make sure to do that. So Luke Weaver against Greinke in the KC Cincinnati game. Immediately, like, it feels like a spot you'd want to attack, but you even see Vegas is giving these guys some respect. I think Weaver is going to have some ownership today. I am not crossing him off my list, but he is not my priority. I do like this matchup for him. He has looked better. You've seen a couple of reasonable outings against him against the including the Dodgers, which he wasn't like reasonable, but like Dodgers blew him up. Before that, though, against Boston, against St. Louis, he was just solid enough at 7,500 without a ton of pitchers. I probably won't end up going that way. Just thought I'd mention it. I do think that like getting some bets, even if you're not going to fully stack this game, is probably a good idea. I do think De La Cruz is a great play, but you're going to have to deal with some ownership as a one-off, as a stack. I think that you're seeing more ownership on Cincinnati, as we often see against Greinke, than I would want for a full stack. But Friedel, any of these guys individually, Friedel, India, De La Cruz, McLean, Steer, Fairchild, well, probably not Fairchild, but Maley's really cheap. Tyler Stevenson's having a little bit of a down year. See where they hit Will Benson. I certainly can understand it, but I'm probably looking more at Cincinnati as a mini stack and pieces, which is the same way I'm sort of looking at KC tonight. I do like Prado. Salvador Perez, obviously always a good play. Bobby Witt's really expensive, but I think he's reasonable. MJ Melendez at only $3K. You can sort of balance out the high price guys with the really cheap outfielders. And really the only high price guys are Perez and Witt. If you eliminate one of those guys and make a stack, I think you could totally do that. But I would probably be leaning more in this game towards 2 to 4 mans rather on each side rather than the full 5-man priority stack. Tampa Bay, Oakland. I don't know what to do here because I feel like this with all the high-end pitchers today. I don't feel particularly excited, but we do have to just realize that that's what we have today. I know Eflin has been awesome. I've always thought he was a better pitcher like them, but I didn't expect him to be quite this good. He's also got some weird games on his resume this year, like 7 innings against Toronto where he was pretty much in control, but yet had 0 strikeouts. That's kind of weird. He's had another game where he had 2 strikeouts against Pittsburgh. It just seems like paying $11K even against Oakland. Probably not for me. I actually think using some Oakland bats to get contrarian is not a bad idea. Primarily the outfielders, the guys at the top of the order would be the ones I would look at. But overall, I probably don't end up with too much Eflin. I might reconsider that, but as of right now, it's my plan. And then you're going to have a lot of ownership on Tampa Bay. And I like Tampa Bay. They aren't my favorite team. You also have you're hitting in Oakland where the weather is 63 degrees. There's some wind blowing out, so it's a little better than a lot of Oakland days. And Tampa Bay doesn't play in a great hitter's park anyway, so it's not as huge of a stadium downgrade for them as it would be for some other teams. But with some significant ownership, I think it's certainly fine to maybe use pieces. But I do think that against the Oakland bullpen and Caprillion, you certainly can't argue that this is a totally reasonable stack. I kind of want to see how the lineup shakes out. But I do have Tampa Bay as if I'm going to make a 5-man, they're probably number 2 for me. And it's just the ownership factor may keep me a little bit lower on them than I would be. No interest in either pitcher from the Arizona-Philadelphia game. I think we're going to see a long relief game, sort of a bullpen game-ish for Philadelphia. The roof is open in Arizona. It's warm as always. And I think we hammer the bats in this game. My favorite stack, personally, they're a little harder to get to, is Philadelphia. I do like Philly against Henry. I think that this is terrific ownership numbers, and they would be my priority stack as of right now. Now, the reason why they're partly this cheap is because this low owned is because they are expensive, and it's hard to fit them in. And they've got a lot of crossover guys, like they have 4 outfielders going today. So I like the stack quite a bit. It's just a matter of if you can get it in, how you get it in, and who you use as a complementary stack. But I like it as a full 5-man. I like it as a 4-man. I like it as a 3-man. I like it every which way, and I like the whole lineup all the way through the bottom, even Clemens as a value play down at the bottom of the order. I like the Arizona side as well. I don't like it as much as I like Philly, and also you're going to have a little more ownership on Arizona. So at least as of right now, I'm going to be more on the Philly side in this one, but I definitely like both sides, and I think this is a game you're going to want to get a lot of bets from. It's probably my favorite spot to attack of the night. when it comes to like full game stacks. I think the KC Cincinnati for pieces, but I think that game for everyone is interesting there. Luzardo, who I really like against Bryce Miller, who I think is kind of an interesting contrarian play just at low ownership. I'm not like saying you have to play him or anything, but like we just talked about some of the worries for a guy like Eflin with the occasional, just for some reason doesn't strike anybody out whatsoever. Bryce Miller has shown ups and downs so far. You got to like the matchup against Miami. He does, for what it's worth, he's been rocked 2 times in a row, but those were the Yankees in Texas. This is a much better situation at home against Miami. So I might be willing to take a weird gamble on Bryce Miller. One thing I like about this guy, he doesn't walk a whole lot of people. He will, run into some contact because of it, but that is something just considering. He's more of an outside looking in type of play, but he's a guy who I definitely want to have some exposure to. And then what do you say? Like Luzardo is like, it's a good pitcher against a team that we have historically good guys who are good against lefties. And most of the really, really big outings from Luzardo this season, or the not really big, but the big outings have been in really good matchups. He is a guy who can create a bunch of strikeouts. I could see him being the highest scoring pitcher on the slate because of all that. He's definitely high on my list, but at really chalky ownership. Playing he and Paxton, I have it rated very similarly. So what I end up doing is probably getting a little more exposure to guys like Liberatore, especially because I like Philadelphia and they're expensive. But I do think Paxton and Luzardo are probably the natural top 2. I think you can make an argument for Webb. And everybody else just feels kind of meh. I think you mix in a little bit of Miller and Webb to get off of the other top 2 guys we're playing. And I think that you use a little Liberatore, who I mentioned. And I probably am going to use a little bit of Bryce Miller, as a pivot off some of the top guys. But again, it's still early in the day. I'm still going through my builds. I will post my early builds, my core plays, my bets of the day in the Discord, and then we will be live at 6 Eastern going through the NBA and MLB slate. So good luck to everybody today and tonight. Again, please don't forget to like, and we'll see you guys at 6 Eastern. Good luck, everybody.